Welcome to 3D Paper Studio. This is a beginner's tutorial on how to use 3D Paper Studio. It's a brand new app on App Store that makes drawing in 3D extremely easy. Unlike a lot of other tools where you have to set up a canvas before you have to start drawing, and every time you change planes or you change axes, you have to draw another canvas. So what's different in 3D Paper Studio is that pretty much all of the 3D space is a canvas, and you can pretty much draw wherever you want to draw. The way it works is we basically pick up point in XYZ axes by long press anywhere on the ground or on a pre-drawn stroke. You just long press, and that particular point becomes the anchor point where the drawing will take place. So I'm just going to double tap on this joystick controller to make the view perfectly aligned, and then now if I draw a stroke and rotate the canvas, you'll see the stroke is perfectly aligned, or the stroke originates exactly from the point of the anchor. Now, the basic controls include a joystick that has orbit, pan, and zoom controls. If none of the tools are selected, then you'll see the camera controls where you can zoom in, zoom out, pan, or orbit. Is a complete 360-degree view. If you select an object or a stroke, then you'll see that the controllers change from camera to object control. You got rotation, move, and scale. In rotation, you can pick the axis that you want to rotate the object at. Or you can pick multiple axes. Same goes for move. If you want to move an object just in y-axis, activate Y, or XY, or YZ, so on and so forth. And same goes for scale. To unselect the object, simply go back to the drawing tool. Let's orbit, and let's take a look at the basic drawing tools. The first one is the brush tool. Let's increase the size of the stroke, and let's use a slightly lighter color. Now you may notice that one side of the stroke looks black as compared to the other side. It's because the direction of the sun. If we change the direction of the sun, things change. So the lighting system in 3D Paper Studio is pretty realistic. So going back to the tools, the brush tool. So by default, it's going to be set at wall, which draws walls, changing the thickness of the wall, or the brush is going to change the thickness of the wall. If we move to flat brush, now the brush strokes are going to be facing the camera, whichever way the camera is facing. That's where the strokes will be facing, always facing camera, which makes drawing or painting in this app extremely easy. Now let's zoom out a little bit more, and let's look into some other tools. Next to the brush tool, you'll see a NURB drawing tool, which is basically like a pipe, but you can draw shapes in or strokes in different shapes. For example, default is a circle, but you can draw a rectangular pipe, or let me just pick a different drawing location, or a triangle shaped pipe. Or star, pentagon, so on and so forth. At the very end, if you click on this freehand brush tool, it lets you create your own shape. If you want to draw something in a custom shape, you can use this. And you can save your custom shapes, give it a name if you want, and if you want to reset the tool, you can just simply hit reset. Then we have the 3D sculpting tool. The 3D sculpting tool basically lets you draw three-dimensional shapes as a lathe tool. And of course you can choose the axes that you want to draw in. You want to draw an X, Y, or a Z axis. And at the same time, all the drawing tools have some common properties, such as the color is going to be available for all the drawing tools. The texture, you can pick from a range of different textures that you can use to draw. For created objects, you can edit the texture details simply by clicking the texture properties. For example, in this case, I feel the scale of the texture is too large, so I'm going to bring it down to something more realistic. This looks much better. In the app, you can also create or draw strokes that have a glow effect to them. And it's, again, really simple to draw glow strokes. Always start with a light color and just tap on the glow icon. And that's it. You're all set. You draw a stroke and immediately you'll see the stroke has a glow on it. In the studio properties, you have some fine settings where you can increase the glow strength, the strength of the shadow, the light of the light intensity for the environment itself, glow effect, bloom effect, contrast, sharpness, so on and so forth. There are quite a lot of properties that you can, or settings that you can edit to fine-tune the scene details. Also, to get started with much more ease, there are a bunch of presets. For example, you can start working with the golden hour template and you can modify that. Or you can pick the blueprint, or midnight, vaporwave, film noir. So, and there are quite a few. Retro game, or your manga craft style. And of course you can edit or fine-tune all of these as necessary or as required. A common question with 3D drawing apps is how to control the shadow. If you want to draw a stroke that does not cast a shadow, how do you do that? So in 3D Paper Studio, it's extremely easy. You just toggle this shadow button off, and that's it. Now, any stroke you draw is not going to cast a shadow. initially you can see that it will cast a shadow, but the system is going to nullify it or cancel it. And it's really easy to toggle this setting. So even if you draw a stroke that does not cast a shadow, you can simply select the stroke and toggle the setting back on for the object to start casting a shadow. It's always best practice in this app to start with no shadows and later on turn on the shadows. But it's going to be a hassle if you have to do that with each and every stroke, because at some point there are going to be thousands of strokes in a file. So the easier way to do it, to control the shadows, is you go into the studio settings and you just turn the shadows off. That's going to save a lot of battery processing. Because remember, this is a 3D app, and it can be power intensive or resource intensive at times. Currently, there's a slight lag in the app because I'm also running a screen recorder as I'm using the app, so it's not the best practice. There are a bunch of tools that are gonna come in really handy once you get into some really fine drawings. For instance, let's say that you have a stroke or a line, and then you have another line at some other point, and you want to connect these 2 points or bridge them together. So for this particular process, we have the deform tools in the app. All you have to do is go to the deformers and select the chain link. What this chain link is going to do is that it's going to activate points on all the strokes. So you can, I'm going to select the straight line, go to the point, and drag a line to this point. And that's it. You have a bridge. There are also other deformers where you can curve the paths or freehand distort the paths. And of course, the third one is the bridge one. The next one is eraser. To quickly access the eraser tool, all you have to do is double tap on the pencil, Apple Pencil if you're using one, or if you're using your finger to draw with, then you can manually select the eraser tool. There are 2 settings in the eraser at the bottom. One is the object setting and the other one is the segment. The object eraser completely erases the object as soon as it touches it. The segment, on the other hand, only erases the part of the stroke that the eraser cuts through. Another extremely useful tool in this app is, let's say if you're drawing something architectural, and let me just remove a bunch of these strokes from here. You simply select the strokes and you hit the trash bin. Let's say that you're creating an architectural plan or drawing or rendering, and at some point you need to cut out windows. So for that particular action, we have a Boolean tool right here. There are 4 different shapes that you can use for a Boolean. You can use a circle, and of course you can control the scale or the size of the cutout. And you can distort these as well if you want something thinner or wider, or you can also change the angle. So again, another useful tool for you. And if you completely want to erase everything on the canvas and as if it were a new file, you hit this trash can on the right side. And it's going to give you a warning that, hey, this action is going to delete everything permanently. Yep, we are sure, clear everything. And now I want to show you guys how to use the symmetry tool. On the left toolbar, the second last tool from the top is the symmetry tool. And once you activate symmetry, you'll see another symmetry icon in the bottom menu bar. If you click on that again, you'll see a lot of advanced options that you can use for drawing in symmetry. For example, I want to draw in radial symmetry. You get to pick and choose how many counts you want and the axes that you want the symmetry to work in. Let me just increase the size of this. And you can see that the tool is drawing in a radial symmetry. You can use it either in a radial setting or in a mirror setting. You can use the view as the reference, or you can use the world as a reference, and you can use X, Y, Z axes, and at the same time you can use view as an axis. All your choices. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind or keep an eye on while using the symmetry tool is that the symmetry tool has its own axes. It does not, by default, it does not follow the drawing anchor point. If you want the symmetry axis to be aligned perfectly or to be placed perfectly at the drawing axis, all you have to do is mark a point with long press, and in the advanced setting, go to the very last tool on the right in the setup, the last tool, and tap on it. As soon as you tap on that, the axis symmetry is going to snap to the drawing point symmetry. And at that point, you can start drawing at the same axis as your drawing depth point. Last but not least, you can import images into the canvas, and the images are going to be imported right at the point of the drawing marker, wherever you have the drawing marker set. And since the symmetry is on, so the imported image also got imported as a symmetry, which is actually neat. In the right toolbar, you have folders, and in each folder, every stroke is going to be marked or recorded. You can pick and choose individual strokes. You can turn them on and off. You can delete them if you want. There's always going to be one folder by default. You can create more folders if you want to organize your strokes into different categories. You can rename these folders, or if you want to turn a folder completely off or on, you can definitely do that. Underneath that are your studio settings, where you can control the light, you can control the color of the background. If you slightly scroll, you can choose the color of the light. And there are advanced aperture settings, advanced lighting, glow stroke setting, over ambient brightness, the camera field of view. You can also change the camera field of view by swiping with your 3 fingers up and down on the screen. Next, you have some fine fill grain. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that in the recording, but there is a really fine film grain now being casted on the screen. And then you have the overall vibrance of the scene. So these settings are, all of these settings are gonna get applied to all the objects on the screen. If you want to turn all the cosmetics off just to work in a black and white mode to save energy or battery power, you can just toggle everything off. It's gonna preserve all the settings. It's only gonna stop showing them on screen, so the rendering cost is gonna go down. You can always turn it on whenever you feel like doing the work. For animation or presentation, or to save a particular view, let's say that you love this camera angle and you want to save it, you simply hit this camera icon on the very top right. And in this camera shelf, now you can see that we have one view. Let me just move the view slightly more and hit the camera again, and you'll see that another view has been added. Let's change the view drastically and add another point. And now you can use this play tour as an animation. If you want the camera to stop at every point, then you keep this toggled off. If you want one continuous play or a flyby, then you turn this option on, and of course you can change the transition time if you want the camera to go faster or slower. On the top menu, you'll see your basic undo redo functions. The one next to it is the world view or the local view. If you're not into advanced 3D graphics already, that it should not concern you. You don't need to bother with it. And if you are an advanced pro 3D modeler, then you'll know what it means. Let me just undo this real quick, and let me turn off the symmetry, and let me just draw a simple stroke once again and select it. If you want to reflect it vertically or horizontally, those controls are really easy. If you want to duplicate anything, you select the object, and in the bottom menu you'll see the plus sign. The duplicated object is going to be placed perfectly on the parent object, but if I go to move and change the x-axis, you'll see that a copy has been made. This is really easy if you're trying to make copies of something while remaining in perfect alignment, like street lights or street lamps. You can do that. You can go to save file, save your project, or you can go to the AR mode, the second last icon from the top right next to the camera. You can go to that, and it's going to take you to the AR mode, where you can view your work as an AR. You can move around it, zoom in, zoom out. With 2 fingers, you can move the composition, and whenever you're done, you just hit X and you can get out of it. And finally, we have the export option. You can export the file as a 3D file, an OBJ file. You can export the video tour simply by selecting the export tour, or you can just save the PNG file of the current rendering of the screen. The PNG is not going to include any of the UI elements. So this was a really quick intro to the app. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else that you need or anything else that needs to be clarified, and I'll be more than happy to create another detailed tutorial for it. Thank you so much for purchasing the app, and all of your love and support is always appreciated.